his background, played for every big club under the sun, an absolute weapon of a player, and what a career from AC Milan, Barcelona, Tottenham, Schalke. He played in all the big four leagues. So what a career. It's a true pinch myself moment where you're getting coached by someone of his experience. And mentioned, you play Latvia and then you realise you just played against someone who played in the English Championship for a number of years, or Albania's captain representing Albania in the Champions League in futsal. Dribble Cisse was playing for France, so everyone got a massive kick out of that. I mean, France brought him on as a bit of a marquee signing. His legs are a bit behind it, but it didn't stop everyone getting down to watch the France games nonetheless. And Christoph Kramer was fresh off a contract from Borussia Mönchengladbach and was playing for Germany, which everyone got a kick out of as well. So yeah, I mean, it's exciting. Like, one moment you don't know anything about this, and the next moment you're playing in the same tournament as some of those kinds of players.
Beautiful. All right, welcome everyone to another podcast. So today we got Sam Young. Sam is a futsal player, a football player, and also a soccer player and a soccer manager in Australia. So he'll tell us all about his experiences with the three sports, as well as tell us about the World Cup in 2025, where he represented Australia together with his team, and the experience and what went on behind the scenes and the interesting stories from there. So with me, I also have Shane Watson, and so together between us, we'll try to explore the topic. So welcome, Sam.
Shane, Timmy, thanks for having me, and glad to be a part of the podcast. Thanks for having me on.
Appreciate it. So let's start maybe with your story, Sam. For those who don't know you, how did you start and how did you get involved with the sports?
I guess it depends how far back you want to go. I mean, I'm a Queenslander. I grew up on the Sunshine Coast, not the beach though, the hinterland, and picked up soccer at a long age, football at a young age, but played up there, but limited opportunities in sort of that small town sort of environment. So I spent a lot of my younger years driving down to Brisbane, which was close enough to sort of pick up, competitive tournaments, rep tournaments, and eventually NPL and whatnot. So, but throughout my life, I think, to relate straight to futsal was that futsal always was part of the curriculum. You'd play 11v11 football during the winter season, and then come the off season, it was all futsal for until 11v11 football came around, and that was sort of where my love for futsal came in, and small sided football in general came in. Was that whole period was dedicated really to that. There wasn't as many, I guess, 11v11 things happening in that period of time, and played up on the Sunshine Coast in Brisbane and any futsal league that I could sort of get my hands on, I guess. And then luckily enough, through pushing and trying, I had the childhood dreams to become a pro footballer, like many of us did, and explored sort of any opportunity I could get my hands on, which included, some opportunities in Europe, and moved out there with some opportunities. But unfortunately, here I am back in Australia at square one. But a good journey nonetheless, and my love for football and futsal, and now 6v6 is still there, so still playing and trying to continue down those paths.
Yeah, that sounds good. Would you say you started out as a 11v11 primarily, or as a small-sided player?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, naturally, you're playing out on grass, you're kicking the ball in bigger spaces, and then you evolve naturally into the 11v11 game. But for whatever reason, and keen to explore it with you guys, I guess, is that futsal was a big part of the curriculum. So it was also, it felt like both. It felt almost evenly both. You would be 100% dedicated for a period of the year on 11v11, and then we'd shift focus 100% to futsal, and was playing in all sorts of competitions and things like that. Probably showing my age, but it was probably before sort of NPL futsal and things like that up on the Sunshine Coast in Brisbane. But it was pretty competitive. A lot of other footballers were doing the same thing. A lot of the kids I grew up with were doing the same thing. We all played the same 11v11 team and then played for the same futsal team. So, it was pretty competitive, I would say. And so, the love for both was there from the start, and sort of you appreciated the skills that you need for futsal slightly different from 11v11 football. I mean, naturally, I think the ceiling for 11v11 football is higher, so you naturally, might gravitate towards that from a opportunity standpoint, and futsal didn't have that, maybe still doesn't have that in the same way, so that takes precedence as you sort of got a bit older. But really, it was both front and center growing up for sure.
Yeah, awesome. And just with you mentioned you were in Europe for a little while. Was that for 11v11 or was that for smaller sided?
Yeah, for 11v11, I guess around the age of finishing school and wanting to be that pro footballer that everyone wants to be at that age, looking for sort of any opportunity that you get your hands on, and doing that in Europe is definitely the dream. So I actually studied a bit in Spain and spent a little bit of time in the UK, and during that period of time, sort of explored what football was like out there. Sort of the best opportunity that came out was actually randomly enough, I was in university with uh, an Icelandic friend who had a few contacts up in Iceland, and he's like, you're too good to be playing the low level that I was playing in Spain while I was studying. He says, head up there, and we could get you some trials and have a bit of a look in. And I was like, absolutely. Still had that fire to play at the professional level, and went up to Iceland and was super impressed. Actually, it was at the time when. Iceland were thriving. I think they beat England. Maybe they made a Euros or something around that time. So there was a bit of a football vibe going on in Iceland up there, and they were super welcoming. I was really impressed with how small the population was, but how good the football facilities were, how good the standard was as well, actually, and signed a contract with FC Keflavik at the time, and broke my hand, I think, 2 months into being out there, and one made the decision to continue on with my studies and things like that, and whatnot, and went back out to Iceland the next year actually as well, but things didn't work out. But yeah, enjoyed a little stint there, and that was sort of eye opening to a new world of football. But yeah, yeah.
Yes, Sammy. No, I've had a similar experiences myself. You head overseas over to Europe. It's the football mecca, so it's where everyone wants to go to form their way through their football journey and whatnot. It's interesting to talk about Iceland. We've had quite a lot of boys head over there recently, and they do really well per capita for their population. But I know that you've been to a couple of countries and played in Iceland and like Hungary and Czech Republic and all that. I know from my own experience, and maybe you can give any tips to any young kids watching. What are some of the most difficult things to manage when you're overseas trying to play, and not just on the field but off the field as well?
Yeah, no, awesome question, and it's one that you look back at some of those experiences in Europe and other places, and you go, "What would I have done differently to make those opportunities more fruitful, etc." I think the big one is maybe not rushing to Europe. I mean, it's the dream. That's where all the biggest clubs are in the world. That's where your favorite teams are from and things like that. But I think the good thing is, as an Australian football, is that there's a lot more opportunities now, and there's a lot more visibility around local football, NPL football, A League, and then Asia. There's lots of places now where I think Australians have access to developing themselves as a pro, semi-pro athlete. Where maybe 15 years ago, that's probably showing my age. I'm in my 30s now. When you're looking at those kinds of things, that felt a very hard task. Finding those opportunities in Australia felt very difficult. The thing I would say is, like, heading over to those countries, I felt as though, in hindsight, you've got to be significantly better than your player that you're trialing against, not just adequately the same level as, because there's requirements around visas and things like that. So I think for players that do want to go to Europe, it's like knowing your value add to the team and working on your part of the game, that's that X factor that teams are looking for. Because I have a bit of I guess a introverted personality, let's say. So I might go to a trial, I might go to a club, I might go to something like that and play within myself and build myself into the game and things like that. And you really can't, because coaches and teams are really looking for that player that's going to step that club up to the next level. And since you're Australian and passport and regulations and all that kind of stuff, it just makes it that bit more challenging. But I would say it's like, that's a case by case as well. I mean, Iceland was quite amicable to international signings, and a few other places are as well. So there's certainly opportunities out there. I'm not trying to distract from that, but I think there's more opportunities. And sort of to my point, where when I was younger, it was just sort of straight to Europe kind of a mindset.
Yeah, nice one. Well, like we discussed before recording this, is 11 aside is definitely, I guess, the popular version of football, and everyone tries it. It's the most popular sport in the world, but it's really the small-sided versions that are up and coming, and that there's a lot of stories that go untold. So maybe we'll shift gears a little bit and talk about that, because I know that you're a big figure in the small-sided side of things in Australia with your involvement with SOCCA Australia. So maybe could you just tell us a bit about SOCCA Australia, what it is, what it's trying to do, maybe a bit of history of it, and how you got involved?
Yeah, no, for sure. And it's a bit of an interesting, side journey that sort of evolved into something pretty cool at this stage, and hopefully for the future. But it was, I guess I'll backtrack a bit further, as part of when I'm talking about loving the 11 game growing up with it. Same with futsal. Also loved the summer 6v6, grab some mate to go play. It was always a passion of mine as well. And it was a few years ago now, where I got connected in with an opportunity to go and play with the national 6v6 team that got the license to represent Australia in Oman in a 6v6 World Cup. And it's part of an organisation called the International Soccer Federation. And when we keep saying soccer, it's SOCCA, not SOCCER. And I think, like, maybe a lot of people listening to this and myself at the time was going, what is that? And it's not till you sort of Google what that is, and it sounds all a bit random, do you realize it's actually a lot bigger than it sounds. And it's basically a 6v6 organization that's been pretty successful in creating international tournaments, including Euros, America Cups, the works. It's sort of like the FIFA body, effectively, or a FIFA body of 6v6 football. And so that opportunity sounded unbelievable. You go represent Australia, go play in a small stadium and play for your country against, tough opposition is sort of the dream, and something that I didn't manage in my 11v11 career. So to do that on a 6v6 field is pretty big. And as you said, the more you look into it, the more this is sort of growing around the world. You look at the success in the upcoming Baller League and the personnel that's been getting involved in that, the Kings League the same, and this one sort of offering these international competitions in the way that they do is pretty big. So yeah, it was jumped on board with that, and was lucky enough to sort of get also involved in some of the management of that as well, and the organisation of the team, and the structures and the itineraries and things like that. And then that sort of developed even further again in the following year, where I've sort of taken on more responsibility and now sort of president of the SOCCA Australia organisation, that sort of represents 6v6 football now for Australia, which I'm thrilled to do. But
Yeah, awesome. And Shane, I'll throw to you. I know that you were also involved in that inaugural trip to Oman, so I'm sure you got a reflection or a question. So I'm throwing to you now.
Yeah, I was lucky enough to go to Oman with Sammy the previous year, and before that, I actually been to a tournament in Tunisia for the mini soccer as well. So I have a little bit of experience. It's not my forte. Most of the time I just play futsal, but there's some similarities between the sport, and they're both extremely enjoyable. And that's not to say 11-11 isn't, but But yeah, look, these are the sort of it's very fast paced and like it's the atmosphere. Sammy talked about like the small field and these like small stadiums that you feel like it's like you're in a cauldron. And it's a very hard thing to really explain. And I think futsal has very similar atmosphere, or can have a very similar atmosphere to that. So like there are similarities between the two, between the outdoor game and the minis football, but there's also a lot of differences as well in the sports. So, I mean, I'm sure Sam will touch on a fair few of them. But yeah, look, I had a great experience in Oman with Sammy. And I would have loved to have gone to Mexico if I didn't bust my shoulder, but that's the way it goes. But I enjoyed watching the guys when they were overseas, and and they performed really well. So, yeah, look, it's just good to see it go from strength to strength. I think the big thing that we need to look at with mini football, your soccer six and futsal for that matter, is that these are up and coming sports. This is ground level that we're on at the moment. We're pushing to make them, recognised, and for people to take notice of these sports. They've got a lot to offer, and most of the time, people really enjoy both sports. It's just the fact that it's not out there enough, and people don't know about it. Once they get a taste of it, most people will come and say, "Oh, I love it." We have so many people that go, "I can't wait for futsal season. I can't wait to play mini soccer. I love it," and yeah. So most of the time, it's a great product. It's just about getting the word out there. I think for both sports in general, they have that in common, and hopefully, we can share platforms and do that.
Oh, totally agree with that sentiment. And ultimately, I haven't met a person who comes and plays futsal with us, Shane, or anywhere, that doesn't walk away and want to come back again. And the same with 6v6, and talking about what the International Soccer Federation has done and producing these tournaments and stuff like that. And they're still upcoming. They're not perfect and all the rest of it, but bringing the world together with the atmospheres and stuff like that, in that small sided game is something that is going to just be a slam dunk. I mean, if you love 11v11 football or futsal, you're going to love 6v6 football. A lot of people, most footballers have all played 6v6 at some level, whether it's with mates or whatever in the summer, whether it's just going to the park or whatever. You've all played a smaller version of the game, and to sort of play that competitively is exciting. Like friends and family that may not be that into football may be more inclined to enjoy futsal and 6v6. And I've had that feedback before because of the pace, because, there's more goals, there's less structure. Well, there's structure, of course, but it's more fluid, let's say, hyper competitive, players that, you're watching, you get to see them on the ball more, players with skill shine quicker. So all of those things make for an exciting game, and you put that on the world stage, and what's not to love. and it's to your point, like the growth comes with visibility, comes with more people knowing about it. I mean, the more people that have seen, Shane, Oman, what we did in Oman, and then the following year in Mexico and stuff like that, the feedback's been fantastic. And I know the same thing in the futsal space as well. Those that sort of are grabbing on the content that is out there for futsal, they take it with both hands. So yeah.
Yeah, awesome. The one thing I was interested / curious about is you've been to 2 of these World Cups now, and I guess unlike 11v11, you don't need to wait 4 years between the two. So you can go every year, which is awesome. So, and now you've been to 2. So what are your reflections on Oman versus Mexico, both for, I guess, the organizational aspects, but also for how Australia performed, and what's different between the two? How would you describe it?
Also, yeah, I'll just say it's an interesting. You're right. Like, it's an interesting format that they pull off a World Cup every single year. They pull off a Euro Cup every single year, and America Cup, and so on an annual basis, which is a massive feat for a relatively young sport in some sense, or a growing sport in some sense. And to get the amount of teams of quality to these World Cups and other tournaments is pretty impressive. So there's something there. Yeah, I mean, it's been a huge learning curve. You wonder, coming from the outset. I remember, Shane, when we were pulling the team together and going to Oman, and we do as much training and prep as you can, but you never know what you're up against. You really wonder what the standard's like. You're playing teams. I mean, in our group, you're playing teams from Latvia, which is not a football powerhouse of a country, Albania, another country that you guys maybe mid-tier and in the football space at best. That's generous. Mexico's obviously known, but who, in this game, who is really, what is the standard like? It's a big unknown. And the lesson learned there is there's a lot of good 6v6 footballers out there. And the other lesson learned is that, you can't just be an 11v11 player and turn up to these tournaments and expect to go far in the tournament. And to be honest, same with futsal. There's similarities to both, but there is a learning curve. There is a different style of game. It is slightly different. It does have its own quirks to it. So you do need to prepare. It's a competitive tournament. It's a competitive tournament, and teams that you might not think are traditional football powerhouses can surprise you and go, wow, they know how to play on a small field. So there was a real, I guess, lesson about how to play the game competitively. It's one thing to grab some mates and go win your local 6v6 tournament where you've got really just talented 11v11 players, and you just play fluidly, to actually go, okay, there is still a structure here, there is still a system here, and these teams train for it, and you've got to be prepared for it. That is still the learning curve. I mean, in Oman, it was really just learning what is this, I guess, for year one, just jumping in that cauldron, as Shane said, and learning the hard way of how to play. And for the viewers, again, we lost every game in that first tournament. I'd argue unjustifiably we were close in a couple, but experience probably let us down. And then year two, we're a little bit more prepared in terms of understanding, the game and structure, but nonetheless, moments hurt us. Probably experience in the small-sided arena is still lacking. That we progressed out of the group, but got knocked out in the round of 16. So, still, the good news is there's still room for us to grow, but definite strides in the right direction, for sure.
Go for it.
Yeah, just touching on that first tournament from a personal perspective that we had in Oman. That was like the first go that we had at. So we obviously had no real idea or expectation other than just watching some really good video clips of the ones that had previously gone and how much fun they looked, and it looks a really good standard, but like you obviously don't know till you get there. But one thing that was really interesting for me in our first two games, the first game I got a real buzz out of it was against Albania, and we were lucky enough to play against two of their players were our national futsal players. So I thought like that was really interesting to see how futsal players went out on a 6v6. And then the following match we played Latvia, and Latvia actually had an ex-pro from played in England in the championship for Plymouth, and his take on playing six-a-side, we were competitive in both games, but you could see like the class there. And so what a lot of people don't know is some of the rules in the SOCCA 6 tournaments is it's non-professional, but the level's extremely high still, because that doesn't take into the count semi-pro, and semi-pro is quite a loose term. And like NPL, there's so many guys that have played A-League, they're still in NPL, they're all eligible. There's guys that are professional, that have retired, they're eligible. There's guys that play futsal for a living, and they're eligible. So it's not a matter of just, it's amateur, you just grab some blokes from the park and rock up and play a tournament. A lot of preparation needs to go into it and the standard, and also the variety of the type of player that you play against. Professional futsal players, professional or ex-pro outdoor players, and then on top of that, we then go and play Mexico, who specialize in soccer six. So they're one of the few countries that have a team that play in a league, and they focus on picking not futsal players, not football players, but guys that play soccer six all year round. So we cop the full variety, really, in that tournament, and it was a real eye opener for us, to say the least. But we learn a lot, and I think it showed in the next tournament how much better prepared we were, and I think it shows that there's even more improvement again for the next one and going forward in the future. But that was a little bit of insight from that first tournament that we had.
Yeah, no, it's playing in these tournaments so far has been a fun Kinder surprise where you're finding interesting players with interesting stories and backgrounds from all sorts of teams. Shane mentioned you play Latvia and then you realize you just played against someone who played in the English Championship for a number of years, or Albania's captain representing Albania in the Champions League in futsal, and the probably two of the bigger names in that first year was Dribble Cisse was playing for France, so everyone got a massive kick out of that. I mean, France brought him on as a bit of a marquee signing. His legs are a bit behind it, but it didn't stop everyone getting down to watch the France games nonetheless. And Christoph Kramer was fresh off a contract from Borussia Mönchengladbach and was playing for Germany, which everyone got a kick out of as well. So yeah, I mean it's exciting. Like one moment you don't know anything about this, and the next moment you're playing in the same tournament as some of those kinds of players and experiences, and you kind of just go, wow, how did I get here? So this tournament can bring out bridges that gap between some big names in futsal and 11v11. So it's just awesome. It's just awesome to see who you find and who you play against. And Shane mentioned as well, like there's teams out there like a Mexico, and I know Poland does something pretty similar where some teams are almost fully dedicated 6v6 teams that sort of play year round the 6v6 format, and that countries invest a fair whack of money in that format. So they're understandably unbelievable at what they do. So then there's some teams you just want to go and watch because they've sort of they're nailing it, and there's a lot to learn. So yeah, I mean you get the full spectrum there. You get the full spectrum of all kinds of players and backgrounds and organisations and so yeah, I mean heck, you as an Australia team just jumping into that, you're learning a lot, and Australia just naturally, it's just not our historically is not our natural forte, is playing on those sort of that street format, that small sided format, that one-on-one format. Probably is an area that Australia needs to improve on. So it's like we find out the hard way at times, and I think for that reason it's good for Australia to be involved in for a player development perspective as well. And then year two going to Mexico, slightly more prepared, let's say, we actually got some good results. So it shows you that, with that extra preparation and care to understanding what we're doing, we can still match it. We were lucky enough and unlucky enough to get Mexico again, but this time they were the hosts playing in Cancun, and they play an unbelievable game. They understand their game well. They use their keeper pretty much the whole time as that sixth player playing out, and so you're playing cat and mouse with pressing and not pressing, and they do that excellently, and they have the whole crowd and that Mexican atmosphere that you would imagine they would have, and again, it just showed that we've still got some distance and some things to learn, and yeah, that's the path we're on. But now we're showing that we're getting closer, so that's a good result for us.
Yeah, there was a big improvement from 0 points in year one to just out of the group stage in year 2. So if you just extrapolate, I think next year is going to be either the semi-final or the final.
Yeah, that's
Let's hope for that.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, it was, and for that's the goal. That's always the goal, of course. But it was an interesting tournament as well because the Mexican tournament had, as you know, we've been describing, and Shane's been describing, some unbelievable teams and players and things like that. But they actually had a big curveball with the visa, with the relationship they have with the USA and whatever sanctions are going on there. That a few nations, a few strong nations, weren't able to sort of mount teams into the country due to that reason. So Brazil. Didn't have their strongest squad there, and there was a few other nations as well that are usually heavyweights that weren't there. So, it's as much as we've moved forwards, conscious that the tournament is just getting stronger as well, and next year is going to be, well, this year now is going to be stronger again. So, just keeping our egos in check, that we're not getting too far ahead of ourselves, I guess.
That's right. That's right. Just one thing you touched on that I thought was interesting is how six-a-side is different to both 11, but also to futsal. It might be a bit technical, but I think it might be interesting. What are if we take futsal, for example, what do you find different about?
Well, I'll say my evolution was in setting this up was initially look, it plays with the same ball as an 11v11. It's a size 5 ball, so it's the same. So your touch is the same, less control on the top, and more that flow is a little bit more like an 11v11 player. And the field's artificial turf. Pretty similar to what a lot of Australians play on for the NPL club, etc., or social teams, local teams, and things like that. So, from that base, and the field's bigger, of course. So the field's, I think, was 45 to 50 meters long to 25 meters wide, something like that. So definitely bigger than a standard futsal court. Although, I don't know what the futsal court sizes are. Shane would be able to tell me in a second, no doubt. But anyway, it feels bigger than a futsal court. So my natural inclination was this would suit a really technical. Well, ideally, it would suit a player that plays both formats, of course. But if you had to pick and choose, maybe a technical 11v11 player for those reasons I just mentioned. Your touch will be the same, your dribble, the feel is the same, your shot is the same, and things like that. But I've sort of come a little bit away from that and realizing the expertise of how futsal plays into this, the movements, the responsibility on the ball, some of the style of play you play when you're attacking. You're not playing so many through balls, long balls. Obviously, that's not the game. Players that can hold up the ball well, and to be honest, a lot of players use those turf boots as well. So you do have the ability to control and wrap the ball around your feet in a similar format to futsal. Not to mention, and Shane will attest to this, and I'll get Shane's input in this too. But keepers are instrumental to the team. They need to be good with their feet. They need to read the game well. They're pretty much involved the whole time. So another element of how it's similar to futsal. So I think I've changed my mind where I'm always like, a lot of the movements and responsibilities are quite aligned with a smart futsal player. I mean, even things like rolling subs, moments and how things change the game. Is of that same sort of a pace, or more closely aligned to that pace of futsal. So definitely both skills I think are required, but there's a few reasons. There's a few reasons why. Like, I think teams that do well are players that can manipulate half a yard of space for themselves. They don't mind being under pressure at all times of the game. They're comfortable in that situation, and they can, use their shoulder, body, whatever it is, to manipulate a little bit of extra time for themselves. And whilst 11v11 players can do that, that for me I associate a lot with my experiences in futsal. So, but yeah, Shane will be able to attest to, no doubt, how involved keepers and how good keepers need to be, really.
Yeah. Well, I guess just to focus on the keeper aspect of it, you find most of the teams in the tournament will have a keeper that's specific, like just I'm going to say the word.
Specifically, yeah.
That's the one, for the sixth man or fly keeper scenario, and their touches, some of those guys have, it was like someone just put a field player in the goals and said, try your luck, because they were unreal. Like, I consider myself half decent with my feet for a keeper, but some of these guys, I couldn't tell the difference in goals, whether they were, just swap shirts or something before kickoff. But so most of them have a keeper for just to, play the fly keeper, and then they'll have another keeper on the bench that they might use more shot stopping if they, have a man down, or they, winning with maybe 5 to go, and they put on, and they want to play on the counter or something like that. So, that it's super tactical as well. Just and also from a coaching perspective, we're talking a lot about playing perspectives. What sort of skill set you need. The coaching is the hardest part, because we talk about combining outdoor and futsal skills together, but then there's sort of moments in the game that are more futsal orientated, and then there's moments in the game that are more outdoor orientated, and you need a team that are going to cover a broad aspect of skill sets, especially for Australia, and probably, I'd say, for most of the teams. There's only a handful that are 6-a-side, only sort of orientated teams. So for the rest of us, we're really playing based on the situations in the match. So if you're behind, you might play a lot more with the keeper and a lot more risk. If you're in front, you play more defensive, and then from that goes into what sort of players you want to take. Like we talk about futsal, there's this big push at the moment for futsal to have 4 players rotating all at once and no target. When I grew up, that was like unheard of. You had a target, 3 guys rotated, and you'd have a big guy up front that wouldn't move. And so with the 6-a-side, you've got that extra 6th person. You rarely will see any team not stick somebody up front back to goal, in front of the D. So you'll need basically 2 of those for a team. Sammy is right. The distance is longer. It's only by about 5 meters or so, but that 5 meters is a long way once you're out there. It doesn't seem like a lot when you actually say the dimensions, but it is longer than the international size futsal court, like the biggest court that you could have. Sure, there's an extra player out there, but it's still extremely challenging fitness wise. You're outdoor, you're not indoor. We played in Oman and Mexico. It was damn hot in both. You need players. Fitness levels come into it. You take big squads, but you still need to be fit. So you need to take guys that can transition, get up and down. Then also, obviously, because you are playing on a smaller field, to outdoor, you've got guys that need to be good finishers and have a good shot. You need guys that can beat guys one-on-one. If they're going to have a big target, you need a guy like Sammy that can defend, at the back and be calm on the ball and keep the ball at the back. So you need a variety of different skill sets. None of them are just futsal. None of them are just outdoor. Ideally, you're looking for guys that probably play the NPL level and in both football and futsal, and that's the really hard part. Sammy, I remember when we talked about what sort of players we would look to take, and Sammy was more of the opinion of outdoor, and I was more of the opinion of to take futsal players. Neither's actually correct. The more of both sports you've played, the better you'll go in this sport.
Cool. Sam, one other thing I was wondering is, I know that you guys involved a celebrity coach before Mexico. Can you tell us about that? How did that happen? Who knew the guy, and how did it unfold? Was it everything you sort of hoped? What were the surprises?
Yeah, a bit of a wild one, as I said. Jumping on Oman in the first place and getting involved in that way was all sort of, just a bit of a happenstance in some sense, and then the growth of that and all the rest, and then working on year 2 and what that looked like I sort of built a bit of a plan or a vision and about 6v6 football. I'm passionate about the small-sided game, so how we can grow that in Australia and all the rest. And I grew up playing with Zach Anderson, for those that watched, a bit of Sydney FC back in the day, and Central Coast Mariners as well. He had a bit of a career there, but I grew up with him. He's from the Sunshine Coast as well, and he's now taken the position of Chief Operating Officer for Brisbane Roar. So, I was sort of sharing some of this journey and sort of my vision for 6v6 football with him, and getting his input, as he's got good insight from his current position and his obviously his career, and through his playing career, he had a close contact who was playing in the ball league, and good friends with Kevin Prince Boateng. And at first I was like, yeah, no, that's great. You don't dream of these things coming together in a real way, I guess. But he connected me with his friend who plays in the ball league, as I sort of explored, 6v6 football in Australia and what that might look like. And he passed that message on to Kevin, who was really, really keen to connect. And I, to be honest, didn't even know he was in the country, and getting connected in with him and sharing, what we've done with SOCCA Australia and what we could do in the future. He was really interested. His background, well, first and foremost, for those that don't know, played for every big club under the sun, an absolute weapon of a player, and what a career, from AC Milan, Barcelona, Tottenham, Schalke. He played in all the big four leagues. So what a career. But he was also really involved in the setup of the ball league, and was a team manager of a ball league team, and helped that whole brand grow over in Germany before moving out to Australia. So he really knew what the potential is for small-sided game, and is passionate about it. He speaks about how he grew up in the streets and played a lot of street football and played with his mates, and knows the value of what that offers. And so, talking that through, he was interested in coming on and helping us out, basically. So then from nothing to that, to all of a sudden he's coming in and helping coach, the Sixeroos ahead of our Mexico campaign was just ridiculous, and luckily for us, that helped us get a lot more visibility and traction with everything that, we've been working on as well. And then, him as a person and as a coach and as a mentor for us was just an unbelievable experience. It's a true pinch myself moment where, you're getting coached by someone of his experience, but not just because he's had that experience, like the way that he can communicate his message, the intensity that he draw out of our players, that, even the game understanding for 6v6, he doesn't just understand the 11v11 game, like he understands the 6v6 game. And boy, I think it put like a rocket up the backside of our team. And yeah, a real motivator, and someone that's just really changed the game for us as an organisation. Was super lucky that he was involved, and wasn't just involved, but like is really invested in our growth. So how the stars align sometimes, but what an ambassador for us.
Yeah. It definitely was a pinch me moment for everyone, I think. Just to see, big names getting involved with smaller sided stuff was exciting for everyone.
I'll just say a quick story as well. It's funny as well. Like you as an Australian, you like to drag people down at times and talk at people and this, that, the A-League's not that good, or this, that, the other. And, you go, I reckon maybe I could be as good as this player or that player. And you're always comparing yourself and things like that. And I played Kevin invited me to come play 5v5 with some of his friends out in Sydney. So I went out there and all the rest of it, and I was just speechless. The guy blew me. Like, the guy's retired, he's got a bunged knee. He, is only just going through the motions and having a bit of fun with his mates, but the abilities, I just go, okay, I was a little bit off hitting those starlights, like the difference was clear, and that you can just see it in touches and movement, and just, he can back heel a shot harder than I can just about shoot a shot forward. So I realised quickly that there's levels to this game, and he's not on the same level as me. So again, just having that experience is unbelievable. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, it sounds that way. What about the training process? Because I heard it was pretty intense, but can you share any of the details? What did you find unusual or interesting how he saw it as opposed to maybe how you did it before?
Yeah, that's a good question. Oh, look, I think it's the intensity that he drove. Like he drove standards, like that. I think we I can just speak for myself, I guess, that that I've been around a lot of NPL clubs and things like that, but the standards he drove in that short period of time was so high. So you're turning up to training, and you're not just like, I'm a bit tired today, I might just do this, I do that. You're switched on. He'll involve everyone. He'll make sure everyone's aware of where they need to be at any time, and he's not afraid to call you out if you're not. So first and foremost, that intensity level just really put us to that next level and drove improvement. Secondly, though, I think like his game understanding is naturally, I mean, it goes without saying, the clubs he's played for and the experiences he's had. But again, 6v6 is a particular sport. Like you're using the goalkeeper in new ways that a lot of us haven't used him before. You're setting up in formations you haven't before, and he knows it. He already knows it. He knows how the game could play out. He funnily enough, our whole training regime, he was teaching us to play in a certain way, using the keeper, for example, not pressing to a certain point unless certain situations happened, getting to the nitty gritty of it. And, we got a little bit lost in Mexico and coming up against Mexico. Mexico executed, funnily enough, the exact game plan that Kevin was trying to instill into us. So, he was bang on, from the get-go, and trying to instill the right structures into us, even though his career was 11v11. So yeah, that. And the last thing I'd say is an awesome communicator. Like his way of communicating and motivating us, I think, was some of the best I've had as well. He's, again, not afraid to share where he went wrong, where he went right in his career, and he's not afraid to tell you where you're going wrong and how you can improve, and he does that in the right way, I think. So I guess those three things. The sessions were long, so we're all absolutely gassed by the end of them. I mean, Shane was there to see most of them, despite his shoulder. He was sort of a part of the journey, and I think Shane looked tired just from watching us train, and let alone me. I was practically on the floor by the end of it. So intense, super intense, super. You're packing 5 sessions into one, essentially. I'll say that.
Yeah, nice. And it showed, right? That's how you got the results. That's really cool. I guess maybe then, just for those who obviously were not there, it was only a small group who went. Anything from behind the scenes of being in a World Cup like this? What did the guys say, from the team? What was the experience like? What were the maybe surprises and the highlights and the lowlights? So if you can share some of the behind the scenes, I think it might be interesting for us.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of hard work. I mean, the behind the scenes element of this is we're very much growing, so that we're not perfect. We're a small organisation. We've had the blessing and been lucky enough to have some awesome people involved, like Kevin, for example. And we were lucky. We were able to bring on board Danny De Silva to play for us, and we had some really, really great stuff going on. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of things that need to get done, and we're making work, and we can't quite work out how to make it all come together and everything like that. So you have all the normal. Oh, we've got two Shanes. But yeah, you have all the normal aches and pains of effectively running a startup business, and part of that is getting the right sponsors on board, and do you have the sponsors? What does that mean you can achieve? And the hard thing for us is a lot of these tournaments are all places around the world, so trying to get a bunch of guys together in a short space of time to fly all the way around the world on a shoestring budget, and trying to get exposure, but all of that all at once is just like just an absolute, just making whatever work. So as much as we talk about all the glamour and glory of playing in a World Cup, it's hard yakka getting there in the first place. And even the tournament itself, as it says, it's growing, so you're still getting a mixed bag of everything. You're getting some poor management at times of the tournament itself, and you're getting what would be an example? The field itself was a bit of a trampoline at the last one, where bits of grass was coming off, and the Brazil team, as I mentioned earlier, they couldn't get their sort of team into the country, so they sort of, instead of forfeiting, they sort of makeshifted team for their games, and as a result got absolutely hammered, and it's not a good look. So whilst it's an awesome product, and we're lucky to be there, there's lots of growth. I mean, in terms of our team, at least for the Mexico, and or both, really is like part of the focus of when we look at recruitment and stuff is bringing on the right people that buy into what we're building, and that's what we did. So I would say limited in some extent, internal drama, really, like everyone really bought into it, and everything like that, but it's just getting everyone there, um, that's the hard bit, really, I guess. So yeah, I don't have any sort of internal drama to speak about, other than um, you know just chasing our tails, getting it to run smoothly, I guess.
Yep, that makes sense. Now that we got Shane back, let's try and see if we can get him to speak now.
Yeah, no, look, I think you even can tell the improvement with the caliber of player that we are drawing in this second year. I know we're lucky enough to have Shavin Adeli playing in the squad, and no bigger name in futsal, and we were lucky enough also to have him in our competition as well. And then also we had Danny De Silva, so it's an ex-pro A-League career. He's been played in Europe, so like even that alone, that's drawing people and drawing interest within the squad. So you can. Sammy talks about how difficult it is to deal with things that are outside your control in the tournament, but as a federation on our own, Soccer Sixes Australia, you could see that we're definitely going in a forward direction there, and the results followed. So it was an impressive tournament to be part of and watch, and and see all the guys out there playing, and with any luck, we'll be able to get some of the boys from the Sixaroos to play in our futsal tournament too. It would be something nice, which hopefully it encourages them to do if they want to improve. Like we said, you need a variety of skills. So it's a win-win for everybody involved, for all different aspects of whether it be 11-a-side, 6-a-side futsal. The more of them that you play and you combine, the bigger your skill set gets. So it's just a matter of managing your time so that and probably focusing on one in particular, but not neglecting the other two. So that's what we're all about, really. I'd say all three of us are big promoters in that space. So.
To that point, Shane, as well, like going back to the earlier point about the discussions around what's the best six-a-side player? Is it a futsal background? Is it a 11v11 background? I mean, that's the perfect example where we were lucky enough to have Chev lead the line up front for us, coming from he plays both, but a real strong futsal background and futsal skill set, and just thrives on the 6v6 field. He was unbelievable for us. His ability to hold off players in a 6v6 field and score important goals for us was second to none. And then on the flip side of that, you have Danny, who also loves futsal and plays futsal, but strong 11v11 background and loves to dribble, loves to attack with pace, loves to get between the lines and all that kind of stuff. And watching, the best of both worlds match up there, I don't think we could have done much better really from an attacking combo. So it shows you that the two worlds very much do collide and align, and there's a space for both of them, and both skill sets are needed to be successful in football in general across all formats. So it's a good example.
Yeah, that's a great point. Well, now you've got the plan. You know how to do it. You've done it for a couple of years, maybe third time's the charm. So we'll see how it goes next year. But maybe just speaking of, and I know we're coming to time for this podcast, but maybe just the last question is, what's the plan? What's the vision for the next 12 months and maybe a bit longer term? How are you thinking about where it's going to go? What's the vision there?
Yeah, well, I mean, first and foremost, obviously, to continue to grow SOCCA Australia, the Sixeroos, improve on our performance, improve on our brand in that sense. Of course, is the no-brainer. But I mean, we want to grow 6v6 football. We want to provide more opportunities for young players to be playing and go in different directions with us with that football. I mean, 11v11 is a powerful avenue for opportunities, but so could 6v6. So could futsal. So offering a better platform for that in Australia, I think, is the goal. Doing that through potentially new leagues, new ventures in that space, potentially offering up tournaments, just different avenues, I guess, and then improving our product at sort of the international level to have somewhere to go as well. So improving on all of that space, I guess, and also complementing the football calendar whilst doing it. We're not trying to take away from futsal or 11v11, but just provide another avenue for players to develop and just for players to fall in love with the game. I mean, again, the really good feedback from people that are watching the soccer 6v6 is that they're finding it fun to watch. They enjoy it. They enjoy the sport, and I think extrapolating that to engage new people in the sport and develop them on a small-sided game might be a really powerful avenue for growth in football. So we want to grow in that space, and and as I said, just grow that football ecosystem in Australia and develop talent further. So that's the end goal. Doing that, I mean, to give you tangible things, is, as I said, creating new leagues domestically and other opportunities domestically, and then improving our product internationally is the plan. So
fantastic. Well, it sounds like a good plan to me. All that's left is just implementing it now.
Yeah.
The easy bit.
yeah, the easy bit. That's right. That's right. The fun bit, the fun easy bit.
Well, yeah, exactly. Well, I think we're now at time for how much we allocated for this podcast, but I really enjoyed just learning all about this new fascinating world of 6v6. Like everybody else, I sort of watched it on the streams and followed along, but there's so much nuance and details that you don't know about until you talk to somebody like yourself. So appreciate your time and sharing those stories and details with us. Hopefully it gets more people interested and sort of makes your life a little bit easier recruiting players and sponsors and what have you, so that you can grow this to be what it needs to be. And I think it's got huge potential. So best of luck and let's see what you can do.
Yeah, thanks, Timur, and thanks for having me on and giving me that platform in your space and the ability to talk about it. So no, much appreciated, and thanks for the well wishes and obviously you with the futsal league and the futsal world with you as well. So thanks for having me, and to Shane as well, wherever he is, popping in and out. But no, it was really fun. Thanks for having me.